This video is an introduction to the offline capabilities of Alpha Anywhere. It relates to the beta test version that first came out in early August of 2014, and I'm recording this at the end of July 2014. I have a demo that I produced, a video that you may have seen, that shows a simple application that looks like this, that is a mobile application that supports offline capabilities. And what I'm going to be showing you is how the capabilities in the beta, which has a list control genie that produces an offline capable browser-based application. I'm showing you how I took that and modified it, added controls to it, and made a mobile application. And I'm going to be giving you the software, the actual source code, but I want to go through the whole thing. It'll be available as an Alpha Anywhere component that you can load up and take a look at. It's right here, and I'll go through it to try to comment it, etc. Now, the assumption is that viewing this, you're very familiar with Alpha Anywhere, and you know how to build mobile applications using it. You know the UX control, at least somewhat. And also that you're familiar with JavaScript, enough at least to follow along with some of what I'm showing you. And if you're actually pretty capable in JavaScript, you could modify it, create it from scratch yourself. But at least you're going to get working code to work from. And our goal is to have a genie that will actually produce an application that's similar to this, hopefully better, using built-in components and built-in routines, JavaScript functions, so that you won't have to do most of the code that you're going to see here. But if you want to get started right away, this shows you how to be able to build it yourself. Okay, so the application we're going to be building, here it is running in a browser. You can load it up by searching the Northwind database, and you can look at different items that have come back, and you can go and you can edit them. There's a variety of editors down here. These you can type into. This one you can click to choose from it. This one has a way to be able to do numbers, etc. And you can then save them back here, be able to edit them, save them back to the server. This is running as if it was offline. It's not automatically committing back, and then you'll be able to detect conflicts and handle it. You'll see it as we get into it later. Actually, to show you a little bit, let me show you a little bit here. So if I change this to Ash-worthy, I used the real keyboard with it, and you see here's the original value is remembered, and it shows this value. The revert button actually isn't working. I didn't implement that yet. Sorry about that. Let's say this really was, let's say place. And this actually takes the carriage return, if you want. And now that change has been put here. The little green bar says, oh, there's been an edit. You can click here. It says there's 2 edits, 0 errors, unread. And this will actually take you, and you can walk through the errors, and it handles through the edits. And if there were errors, you can go through the errors. The errors are detected by the server and sent back, and we'll show that in operation later. So that's what we're going to be building. You'll notice that this is basically a list, and the list gets the values that come from the rows in the table, and they're formatted. This is a sort of a header, and you can go through them like so. Okay. So if we go to the list and create a list, there's the list control quick setup genie. So we'll do that. And this can be used to create an application. This is an interim version of it. the list properties, the source type. We're going to do SQL and a connection string. I'm going to use Northwind. You should be familiar with this. Fields in the table. We'll do the customers table and the field list. Let's do all of them. Just about all. Won't do images for this. And we're going to add what's called a detail view. And the detail view will show all the fields in the query. It's editable. They're single text boxes. We'll put it in a container. And we'll have a placeholder for the global errors. And let's have a placeholder for debug information. We'll have a search part. And the search part is going to be a single keyword control. And the fields, let's select all of them. So you can search in all of them. We'll delay populate the list till the active search. So we won't populate it until you ask for it. So we won't bring the whole database down because it's a mobile device and it may be a very big database. The search part will have its own container. Search debug information, won't worry about that. For disconnected operations, you can persist the list data to local storage, so remember between invocations. I'm not going to do this one now, but actually you will want to do this. This means that, as you'll see later, the data is stored in the browser's local storage. It's a feature of a browser, local capital storage, all one word. And it means that when you come back to the browser, things can be as they were, and we'll show you how to do that. So the genie goes and it creates this nice little application. And if we preview it, here we have the list. Maybe we should have made the list a little nicer, but we can search here, let's say, for London. Search. Found all the London ones. We can go through them. We can edit them. Let's say here, where did we see we'll put this on a different address. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we do a save. It's back. This is listed as being modified. Here is the actual data that's stored. This is in JSON format. And you can see that the old data, that's the old values, are here. So we have 1, 2, or whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4. It used to just say 1, 2. And it's all set to be able to synchronize back to the database if you wanted to, etc. So this is an application. Now notice these are separate controls, but this is a very browser-based application as opposed to this, which is a much more mobile-oriented application. This fits just inside the screen. It scrolls in the areas. It brings in from the side. The edits are all at the top, so the keyboard doesn't mess up the screen, etc. So what you see is there's the keyword search, the search button. Here there's a synchronize button, a new record, a delete record. You can actually add defined controls, a whole lot of other ones. So for example, there are the search part, the detail view buttons over here for this list. So we'll do for list 1, you can have a save, a new record, delete, undo, synchronize. That's how we got the synchronize. Plain synchronize pushes the edits. This will do just the current row. This does all lists, so there's more than one. This lets you to be able to refetch. Just here's incremental, just the things that have changed. And this is for debugging. You can show the data in the list that will fill the debugging information in, kind of like you saw there. Okay. So what we did here. So this is offline demo. Offline demo is available. Let's see. Let me get you some. You're going to get what's called offline demo, and in it you will find a copy of Northwind. In case you don't have it, you probably already do. Offline demo 1.a5wcmp. There's the component that we're looking at here. And you're also going to find a folder, and inside of that is a special font, the font files, and the CSS to be able to get to that font. What you're going to need to do is to take this and put it into your where you keep A5, your Alpha Anywhere source of your program, and in there you'll find, of all the things, one of them is CSS icons. This is how you install the icon fonts, and you just drag that copy of it in there, and then you go in to the font and find the TTF file and double click on it, and you'll be able to install it as a font. You should do that before you get into the app. And then when you bring up the app, this is what you'll see. You can go to Properties, and if you go down to the CSS font icons, you'll see that it has checked Font Awesome and List Browser 1. You're going to probably have to uncheck this, do OK, then check it again and do OK to install your copy into the system. It's kind of weird about how to handle it, but when you do that, you'll see you're going to be able to get to the various icons. So for example, the synchronize button, which is an image, if you look at the image name, it's the list browser font, and here are the special fonts that we have created for it. This was done by a graphic designer. She created these in Adobe Illustrator, saved them as SVG files, and imported them into the Fontello system. Like I think there's a video from Selwyn telling you how to do that. And we use these inside of the this app. Okay. So you'll see what we've done is this is what was produced by the Genie here. These are just sort of set in a panel at the end that is available only for debugging. You can see it, but let me show you here. You go to Menu, Debug. You look over here, you'll see here are those, all of those controls, and I've added, I think I may have added a few more, the refresh list I put in here so I could see how it works. This lets you see them. They're not actually used on the screen, they're in this debug part. You go to current, the current item, go to Menu, Customers will get you back here. So we have the overall layout. Within that is the heading. This is the top of the display. Okay, so this stuff up here at the top, these are all up here. Okay, so here is the search panel. That's the main one. Here's the detail panel when you're actually editing one of the details. And here's when you're doing the list of edits that you've done, and here's the list of errors. That's the top. You'll see that a lot of these have a particular class. There are a lot of specific classes. If we go to the CSS, you'll see that there's a lot of CSS classes that have been built specifically for this application. If we go to Properties, you'll see in your properties that there is local CSS definitions, and these are here, and you'll see reference to them all over, and that's how we get the look. This was done by a graphic designer. who gave me the CSS, and some of it I did myself. It's an iOS 7 base that we're working off of, and we're not using any responsive design in this. This is a very simple design for an iPad only or another tablet of similar size. You'll see that local storage, we can get to this later, has been set up for persisting the component state and the variables and restoring the local storage, storing the data in the list controls, and restoring the state. Just clicking these makes a lot of stuff happen. We'll look at that in the JavaScript a little later. So there's the first part. Then we have the main navigator for the bottom. There's the menu. The menu is pretty simple. It says menu, there's a list of menu items, and then there are two other panel cards that have basically nothing in them, just to look like the rest of the design. This is the main container here, this one here. And we have in it the customer list panel, the details panel that has the detail list. That's the customer list, the detail list. And then there are the editors. This says editors layout. It's actually a navigator. And I'll show you how we use JavaScript to load these different editors. There's a blank one for editing text, one for editing numbers, one for editing lists, one for displaying errors, is kind of like an editor. And then there's the debug layout at the top level, and this has a list of debug commands, and clicking on those will cause you to execute them. Some of them fill out this debug text area over here, and then at the bottom, local storage manager is a standard control, a defined control that lets you work with the local storage, and we can look at that in a little while. Okay, so let's look at there are a few client-side events that we work with. On render complete, just blanks the editor panel. We'll show you that in a minute. And then when you persist, I save some extra stuff that's not automatically set by the system, but because we check those properties, all sorts of persistence is done to save between invocations of the editor of this application, to save it away to local storage. Happens automatically. This thing here restores them and then sets up the screen in the right way, and depending on the situation, may have to display certain editors. The main thing is this JavaScript. Now, a lot of this in the near future will be built into the system, but we want to show you, and it won't work exactly like this in the future. I mean, it'll be a better implementation, but this will continue to work. So the first part is persistence, and this I take the last time it was synchronized, and I remember that, so that when it comes back, I can still do a delta from the original time. I get the pointer to the panel object, and get state. This has been there in Alpha Anywhere for a while, and we're saving the state so we can get it back. Remember certain other things that I'm going to need to be able to restore the way that the system looked before, and I happen to make that into a string instead of an object, and return that string. And if we go here, you see that I take that string and assign it to e.userdata, and this tells you basically you have user data is extra stuff that will be persisted, and we can take a look at that. Actually, we can if we go here, debug, go to the bottom, menu, we'll show it for the keys for this app, and we see we have info and variables and list 1, and there's no friendly name for it. I didn't add that or any of version 1. It's offline demo 1, and here are all sorts of variables that have been stored. as you see, and the user stuff is in there, etc. that I needed. There's the user data, and there's my string that I put away, and here is the whole all the value of list 1. That's all that data that we have here, which is the same as this debug lets you see it. That's the values that we've received from the server and is stored in list 1. Okay? And that's just the current one, the one that we're looking at. And it has the old data. Same type of thing that we got when we used the, we ran this. Okay? Let's go back here. Go back to our JavaScript. So that's the beginning of the JavaScript. So that takes care of, and when we restore, we parse that data. We get our sync time. If it isn't there, we use -1, which we treat as we don't know when we've synced. If there is panel state, we reset it, set things back up the way that we want it to be, and that's it. Now, this information here, the number of edits, let's go back to customers, the number of edits, number of errors, etc., and the ability to go through them, that is what I call sync info. And this gathers the sync info. So doing this, you give it the list that you want to look at, and it looks at the list at the JSON and looks for errors and has a list of those and unreads and edits. And for each of them, it has an object, and the object has a field root or route. And basically it is the name of a list, which row. The name of another list, a row. Well, there's only one list in here. And then optionally a field. Like a global error, we just know it's on the whole row. We don't know which field, but like a right conflict error might be on a particular field. An edit might be on a particular field. So like if we've done an edit, we would say that it's on a particular field. And then we have the type. Is it generic? Is it a global error? Is it right conflict? I handle a couple of these and some specific data for it. The unread list. So this goes through. This has a little function to create one of these items. It goes through all of the data for the list. We got the list up here that you've given it. It goes through all of them, and is it dirty? If there's old data, is the old data the same as it, which go through all the fields? Is the same? Are they different? If they're different, then we've done an edit update where that's an edit. We've made a change to it. So we do we push in to the edits one of these objects. If they're global errors, then we put a global error one. If it's a new row, we put this. If it has conflict errors, then we get the data, copy a lot of some extra information, store it all in. You can look at this if you really care in great detail to see how it works. And it turns out that if there's flagged view is defined, that means, and it's the view is defined and it's false, that means that we've done an update from the server and we've received a new value back, a changed value that is different than we last looked at it. And we should mark it with a little gray line next to it to let you know that this is something that you haven't seen. It's a change that came back in an update from the server. This routine updates the sync info in the display, and it just gets a pointer to the particular box. So in this case, it gets to this for edits. It then says, well, is it 1? Well, it's word edit, otherwise it's edits. It takes the length, and it'll detects that. And if it's greater than 0, it uses a 1 opacity, otherwise it's a 0.2, a 20% opacity, which is why you see that these that are 0 are sort of grayed out. And it does that for all the errors. Synchronize, we keep track of when we last did a sync. There's a reset of when it does it. If we have a timer, we stop the timer, and then we update it, and we make sure we remember the new value. We persist variables to local storage. To update the time since last sync, this is the thing we've called. We find out how many minutes it's been since the last sync. We update what it shows on the screen, and we wait 15 seconds before we update the screen again. If it's less than 0, that -1, we don't know what it is. This is an important routine. This is a routine that says, given a field route, let's configure the UI to show it. So it basically goes through the route and says, if it's got a list, then go to that particular list, select that value, make sure it's on the screen, load the current customer for that, and go back again. Notice, remember in this case, it sort of started to be written for multiple lists within lists, but this is only for one in this application. If it's got a field, then you get the detail list and you set the value to that field to be able to scroll to it, so you'll be able to see it. And that's how we're able to do this, to go right to it. And that next previous of which item the errors or edits is update. This updates that list for the edits, the errors. It just puts up the values up there. This is how you display the error information. The error information is on the error panel. And let us get an error here. In this case, we'll get a global error. We can synchronize. We've got an error. You can see it's just a general error. I can go here and say, go to that error. Selects the row. There's nothing to select here. It shows the global error, just so we could see what we got back. Debug current, the current item. You'll see that what we received was there's the old data, dirty, global errors. There's the value. There's the global error, raw. Sometimes this is in HTML. Has global errors true, and but there aren't server-side errors. These are global errors, which are different. This is how it's normally handled in the Genie makes it like this, and the sync info. This is what when I do a get sync info, you'll see that errors field root. Go to list 1. Its type is global. There's the data, and by the way, here are my edits. List, field, list, field, list, and field, and that's what we got. The error list, right, if we go to the error list, well, this message value, var name, and action, these are actually filled in by the display error. Actually decides what's going to go here, and the list just says the message and the value. If we go to the list events, there's before select. It gets the var name and the gets which row number, gets the var name and the action, and in this case action use resolve conflicts using mine, resolve conflicts using theirs, resolve all conflicts using mine and theirs. This I guess that's supposed to say, yeah, if it's nothing then it does them all, and this is a do nothing. Okay. There's nothing for, in the case of a write conflict, so it pushes this message data, use mine, use theirs, use this, with the different actions. Puts the word right conflict there and displays the message. It's a global error. It just populates it with the thing, with the message itself and the word global error, and puts that up. Okay. And blank error, the panel. Remember, you can always use this list down here to be able to get to the place that you want. And this to get to the different sections. This section here is the details, the detail list section. Now, a detail list is, instead of having all the separate controls, we're having a single list, if you remember. The detail list. And the detail list has a name, a value, a formatted value, typed, value ID, row style, has old value, this is true or false, the old value, whether this is the beginning of a group, which means it has a name for a group, and what action to do if you happen to select it. The list class name is detail row item. The list selected class name is detail row selected. And on click, well, let's look at all the events. We have before select. This makes sure that if you're clicking on something that is like the name at the top, like this, it's not selected. These are rows. When you actually select it, then if the error list panel, the thing at the top saying you're in error, then display the error. Otherwise, load the editor, and we'll show you that this loads an editor. Refresh this, because when you're editing, it displays a little differently. The CSS detects that, so therefore you should do a refresh and make sure that the detail panel is active in case it was off the screen. And then after render complete, it refreshes it again. Okay. If it's a start, so this has a template. It's a let's see, where is it? It's a free form. If it's the beginning of a group, then it has this with certain classes. This is a routine expand detail list classes. We can look at that. Expand. Gets the row style, puts the word row style, takes the row style value, splits it, and joins them together as space plus the prefix, which basically says detail row style, you know, A, B, C, D as separate things. And there's the name, so which would be the name is here. And the reason that you need some of the refreshes is to make sure that it changes the height when you go here, because it's changed to add this extra part there. And then detail row item main, expand the detail. If it has an old value, if that's undefined and it has an old value, then it's considered edited. Add this class there. That's how you get the some of the change. And if it's an error, then you add error, which is some more classes that are added to this this div. And here's the row name, the row value. If it has an old value, not defined. If it is defined and there is an old value, it's true, then put the word revert on the right and put the old value there. But if the old value is undefined or it's null, put the word blank in italics there instead. So that's when you've taken something that was empty and turned it into. So for example, if we go here, this region was empty, and it says region is northern, northern, and now it says italic blank. That's, you can use Firebug to see how this all works. Let's go back to the JavaScript. So this is loading the detail list. Okay, so we were looking, so you want it now to load the detail list. I have a specification of what it is, which basically we'll look at that spec. The spec is right here. It's the detail list. The main list it's getting its values from is list 1, and here are the rows. There's the start group, it's called company, is the name, company. It is a title, and there's some space above it. Customer ID with the name this. It's with a, we'll put the word ID. Well, this is the field name that we get the data out of, and it's also the control that we're going to get the data out of. The control being this, that remember we put away on the side, but we're still keeping around. We'll take the control, but we're going to display this, and it is of type text. So look for a text editor if I click on it. It has no, it's the default style. Company name, on the other hand, which says company, is text, but it's considered major. So therefore, company name is, notice is, let's see, major, I guess major we don't do anything with right now. It used to be major was special. Plain and medium. Plain, title, line above, text, medium, etc. Oh yeah, the company is in big. B's Beverages, that's nice and big. So let's take a look at that. If we go to the local CSS definitions, and we look for detail row style major, here we see that we have the detail style major, has a line height of 36. That's what the row name would be, and major also has a font size of 30. Detail row style medium is bold but size this. This is how we change all those, and that's what all that futzing around with the class names does. And these just are all added up. It says that if the row style is major, then the row value has this. If it's row major, then the row value is this, and this has this, etc. So here we have another group start. So this is loaded up by load detail list. Okay? And the detail, so this loads into that list control, the detail list, the name, the value ID, the type. I hope these are all right. They may be. I try to keep it up to date. This is the name of the control and of the field in the main list, string to determine if there's an editor match. So if you remember on that list, it says type. The type is text, text. And here is a number, comma, phone, number, comma, phone. And we're doing a search for number, and it's a sub thing of phone. It's a list, and it's country. And we'll look at that later. So this loads the list. It goes through all of them and picks up the values necessary. And it actually gets the value from the single controls and puts them into these items, filling all the stuff out. Is it dirty? Is it, does it have errors, etc.? And then pushes it into a list. and then populates the list, the detail list, deselects them, and persists everything so you can come back to it. Now, there are formats, and there's a formatted value because a thing may be a number or a date or something like this, and this allows you to take the row format and format it appropriately. And right now it just does a special chars. Special chars is the last thing at the end here. It just takes all of the special characters and converts them into safe HTML. So you'll see less thans and greater thans and quotes and things like that. Okay, that's load detail list, apply detail format, expand the detail list classes. That's where we take those row styles and add plain, etc., major, minor, etc. to the classes. This process is before select detail, and if the action is this, then return false. So that says, and the action, if we look back here, we'll see that the action is 0. But if it's a start group, then we do this and we push the item and we set the action to 1. So that's what that is. Now the detail errors. Detail editors. These are the things that come in on the side, and each editor is defined. It's a class of object in this case. This will change in how we're going to implement it for for built-in stuff, but this works here. And it's the name, the type match. It's a regular expression, and then used just to match the type. So that would be like number, comma, something that gets rid of the comma, etc. That's the regular expression. The idea of the panel to activate when you use this. What is the parent, where you put it? And this remembers the current value of that. It's the string that was used for this. It's the ID of where the control to set value, where's the list that it comes from, so that you can save the values back to places and look for various things. What number in the detail list was it, so I can go back to that and update, get more information from that field if necessary. What's the name? If I have to display the name of the field, what is it? What's the nice one? Rather than, cust ID or something, you can put just ID. Any instructions to display? I don't really use this. Dirty, it's not actually, this isn't used, it was used a little while. And then there are these functions that you need to have, and the prototype is the initialize, and this just takes in the name, the panel ID, etc. When you're loading, when you load it, you use this. This is the test match, test to see if this is the editor I want. It uses the regular expression and then fills in the right current values. Load, you're going to have to override this. You're going to have to override save. This is what you do when you load the value into it, when you save. This displays it, sets it active. This hides it. These you don't have to override as much. Update the title. This is the default way that we update the title, by taking the text ID and the string, and we get a pointer to where it is, and we put it in. Update the detail list row to show the new value, so when you actually do a save, it actually updates it in the value, and this is the thing that's able to do that. Update the row of the detail list. So when you want to load an editor, this is what you do, and you give it the editor list. Remember, we had that up on let's see, load detail list. When you click on something, you click on the detail list. load editor from our editor list, which we'll look at in a second. Well, let's look at our editor list. Well, our editor list, and what is the type of the data? This is the type is something that was put in the list when we loaded it. The variable name, which row, where's the data, the row number, the value ID, all the stuff comes from here. Let's go back and look at, let's actually look at so the editor list, let's see, our editor list. Our editor list is down here at the bottom. Oops, sorry. Text editor, number editor, list editor, that's the different ones we have. Here's the definitions. We have text editor. We make a new one using this. We override the load, get the value from that control, and set the value into a text box, set the title. It's not dirty. When you do a save, it gets the value and sets it back here. We don't need to use the dirty because the way get and set works, you don't need to. It'll take care of, if you save the same thing, it's not considered dirty. Update the detail row and to be able to see the new value. Here's the list editor. This has a list, etc. So you'll see here, so like in the number editor, let's see, that's the text editor, list editor. The number editor, the type match is just the word number. That's all it's looking for. It's a regular expression. And it's not, right now we only have one type, so it's not looking that it's a telephone number or whatever. Okay, and so let's show you the editors. Here are the keypad functions: add to amount, backspace amount, clear amount, and we'll show you those in a second. And let's go back up here. So we had all the editor prototypes. Here's load editor that actually loads it up. We do the test match. If it's true, we load, set the current one to this one to remember it, persists or remember. If it can't find an editor, there's an alert. Commits the value in the current editor if it's changed. That's called by various things. It just finds the current editor and does a save on it and persists to storage. Cancel does a hide. Save the detail edit. Updates the list from the UX controls, because remember, as we've been doing all of these, the saves actually save everything back to the controls, to those separate controls that are off to the side, and let's see. Go back here. So that we load the current customer. We load it from the list. We take it from the list, and that loads up the current customer, which we'll look at in a second. Cancel closes the panel, editing without saving to the list, called by some of the X things. Resets the form, and it does a reset form, which is the same thing as one of the buttons that you can get in down here. There's the reset button, and that's what we have, the reset button. We looked here and we saw, oh, that's how you do it. Okay, I'll just copy that. That's what I did. No detail display, closes the panel, removes all the rows. This cleans it up. You do that after certain things just to clean up the UI, like after a sync or something. This is the thing that lets you go through different details, next, 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 It gets the editor, make sure you don't go off the end, skips over group names, and then loads that editor. So this lets you do the next. That's what this is. Here's our spec list we saw before. Load the current item from the list. Okay, load the detail list with our spec. Cancel the editor in case we were an editor. Get the header, get the company name, put it up there, and put the value up there. That should have been a special chars of this, probably to make the company name cleaner. Nothing like reading code to do debugging. Here are the definitions of our text, of our editors. Keypad to do the keypads, we'll look at that in a second, and the utility. That's it for the functions. So, here's the blank editor. Here's the text editor. The container is a panel header 2. Why is it panel header 2? Well, panel header 1 is just black up here, and panel header 2 has a little line on the side over here to make this line. You'll also see that all over the place there's this panel overlay, which has the vertical gradient, and that overlay basically puts that gradient over here, which is defined in the CSS up here, vertical gradient. These, for the different browsers, cause it to have a gray, basically a black, 40% black to 5% black going, and this is, and you can see it. This is it when it's really wide, but it's only 4 pixels wide, and the overlay is put at the 0, 0, 0, the top, bottom, and left of the panel. So it's anchored here, it's anchored here, here, and the very bottom, and it's only 4 pixels wide. That takes care of that. So the text, here's a panel header 2. This is a button. It's an image only. It is a class panel header button. In this particular one, there is padding of 0.17, basically top right, bottom left. That's how it gets where it is. It came from here. It's this one of the list browser special icons, but because it's a panel header button, let's look at that. It has this color. The background color is transparent, but the icon itself is this color. And I'm using this font size, this line height, which makes it what it is. Because it's a button, we're getting rid of some of the standard stuff. The border is none because buttons by default will have borders. The radius is 0, etc., and it's positioned absolute to the right within the thing. This is how buttons work. It's a button class and a button image inline, etc. So this works. And click, tab through details, +1. Plus to emphasize it could have just been a 1. This one, -1, tabs through the details. This just says text editor. Here's the text box that gets loaded. There's a special on key up that says if it's an enter key, get rid of the focus, which will make the keyboard go away, and do a save editor. So you can, this is helpful when you're using an external keyboard or when you're debugging on a regular browser. You can use the keyboard and throw return without having to click on a save button or anything. The same thing up here in the keyword search, we added the on key up. Okay. Go back to That's text box 1. Save. Save editors for the editor layout. Cancel. There's no editor, otherwise editor load. With nothing. I guess that cancels it, but leaves it up because it loads it with the old value that was there, so that if I go here and do this and do cancel, it reloads it. The number panel, similar top. There's the number. This is just a label. It's not editable. It's an editor text field to class. Save and cancel. In here we have an absolute layout. Okay, and the absolute layout is all the buttons. And here each of the buttons, and each of them are a specific size that the graphic designer, the UI designer, told me to do. They're all 100%, which is how you do the absolute layout, and then it's assigned by the absolute layout. It's an editor number key, and on click, not on click, the click says add to amount a 1. Okay, and that's where the result goes. This one is add a 2. This one is backspace amount. Instead of having a number, like these actually have text, this one has an image. And there's the background color for it. And it's that. That's this. So we want the background color is set. Normally it would be transparent, but we override that to get you the red the same. And the list. It's a list editor. Here's a list. This list, we populated it with one of the sample datas and then added a few because United States, we add USA and UK and certain things because that was the values that were in the Northwind database. And this is a very simple, just shows it. Editor list row selected. Those are classes that I've defined. And for events, when you click on something, we just save it in the editor so that you can actually change it just by clicking on it. If you click on United States, that will set this right away to United States. Back to UK. We'll not save that. Okay. Here's the editor panel. I think we looked at this. There's the editor list already. Here's debug. The debug commands are pretty simple. You can add your own debug commands if you wanted to do things. This resets the list, resets all sorts of things, and it's a dangerous command, but it's very useful when debugging because all sorts of stuff gets saved away every time because it persists. Every time you run the app, it's right where you left it before. And for debugging purposes, that's really good because you don't have to get up to the point to test something, but if you want to start from scratch again, you like to be able to reset it. So this lets you do that. Let's look at list 1. List 1 is special. It has a detail part and a search part. This was all set by the Genie. I've added persist data to local storage. I click that, in which case it needs a version. And it's a free form. Here are the class names that I use. on item draw, this is how I handle unread. If the flag viewed is undefined, is not undefined, so it is defined, and the data is false, that means that I haven't viewed it yet, and it will add the class name. This is a built-in alpha anywhere routine. It's a function, adds that, or unread, or removes it. And whenever you actually click on it, the system automatically says, oh, now you've read it, and it will get rid of it. And we'll show, I guess I can show you that in a bit. On click, load the current customer, update the sync info display. Because if you click on it and it's unread, this will make it show it unread. There's some more events. There's pop-up on item draw. After search complete, updates the sync, resets the time since you last synced, deselects them all, no detail display. So this is when you've done the search. So when you type something new in here, it's not going to let me do that because I have dirty data. When I restore from local storage, update the number of customers. After render complete, refresh and update the display. So I have some things here for that. The detail view. The detail view has a map of all this. This was automatically constructed by the Genie. Look, the names are the same, and I'm assuming I'm taking advantage of that in the system, knowing that the names are the same of these controls, the ones that are down there at the bottom. Table properties. We're not using any of these, I guess. These are allow insert update. This was done by the Genie. Client-side events. After you synchronize the list, reset the time, because it's not always a search. After a sync, you want to do these, and after a refresh list incremental, do the same thing. Reset the time, update the sync display, deselect them all. The CSS classes, dirty row list. I'm using my classes to do the different type of things, the edit row, the error rows, etc. I'm using my classes to do that rather than the defaults. And now the synchronization policy, I have now perform client to server synchronization whenever the user sets. So this is, it will, if you're connected, if there's an internet connection, it'll immediately save it back like a normal Alpha Anywhere app. Back sends a server back. I'm saying don't do that. I want to do manual synchronization on this. You have to push the synchronize button to synchronize. And that's what I got. But when you do a client to server synchronization, whenever you do the client to server, do a server to client. So basically, if there was something updated elsewhere, let me know about it. Okay? And that's how we get those unreads. So I've changed that from the default. Okay? I don't know what else I may have forgotten. So this hopefully is enough to get you started. If I run this, and I do London, and here we go, and it's Ashworth. This is all where, etc. I go back here, and let's fix this one. And do a save. And so now we have Ashworthy over here, and we have a place over here. And let's go over to and change it to Ann Devons. Okay, and let's now do a sync. Okay, nice and clean, everything's back. We go over here, and let's see, remember that we made this to Worthy. Well, let's say we want to make this to Ash Worthington. Save. And now if I do this, oh, we got an error. Notice, read, this is one unread. There's my unread. I don't have a go to next unread. I haven't implemented that. It was synced 0 minutes ago. I can go look at my edits if I want. That's what I did. But I can go to error. And there we go. We've got the error. That's what I have. Use mine, use theirs. Use mine, all mine for this customer, use all theirs for this customer. So if you have a lot of errors, you can do them all at once. Let's say, well, you know, I want to use mine. Now, synchronize, everything's cool. Go back here, do a sync. Ah, look at that, it's been updated. There it is, that goes off. It works. So I hope this was helpful. And if there's anything you need to know, you know, let us know. And hopefully we'll have some more information about this along with it. There is a very helpful document that's written, that Selwyn has, that should be available when you see this, that actually has all the details, not of this application, but of the Genie and all of the calls that are made and what the list is and how all the stuff that you need to know to have built this yourself, if you know Alpha Anywhere already well enough to do the UX control this way, but you don't know about this new offline capability or persistence, all that type of stuff is there. Now, the stuff that I'm not showing you is the ability to be able to create a static version of this that is remembered in the browser, so that even if the browser has been shut down and you turn the browser back on, that the browser will come back with your code also. That's called the app cache. It's a feature of the browser, and we've been putting support into that. Unfortunately, to do that, you have to make some changes perhaps to the server that you're serving that static HTML from. It has to have certain MIME types, and that's a whole separate video, but we do support that, and it does seem to work, that you can actually have a browser-based version of this. Not you won't need to put this in PhoneGap, though you could put this in PhoneGap, it'll work great. But you can also run it off of a plain browser and have the code, the JavaScript and everything, the fonts and everything persist, and it'll come, and because the data persists, everything comes back as it was, and therefore you have a real offline capable app. Thank you very much.